Mr. Easterfield, when Jessie worked for you, her help was of excellent quality, wasn't it?
Yeah.
She worked for you for over a year,
Yes.
and you gave her a raise even.
We did.
You remember the morning that the brooch went missing?
Yeah.
But you weren't in the room with your wife when she asked Jessie to go upstairs to look for it, were you?
No.
Your wife told you, Jessie took my brooch,
Yes, she did.
and she looked angry.
Yeah, she did.
But you had mixed feelings, didn't you?
Yeah.
You knew your wife tended to exaggerate sometimes,
Yes, she did.
so you were skeptical.
You could say that.
You called Jessie,
Yes.
and she came immediately, correct?
She came to the library, yeah.
She was dressed up,
She was going to go to church, yes.
and you knew she was going to church that morning when you called her.
Yes, it was Sunday.
You knew it was her day off.
Yes.
But you made her stay to question her, even though you knew it was her day off.
Just for a minute.
And you asked her about the brooch and where it was, even though you knew she had already looked for it, didn't you?
Yes, but I didn't talk to her, just my wife had talked to her.
And you told Jessie, just tell us the truth.
I believe so.
But Jessie had already told you that the brooch wasn't on the dresser, hadn't she?
Yes.
Your wife was in the room with you and you questioned Jessie?
Yes, she was.
You suspected at that point that Jessie did take the brooch?
Yes.
So you spoke to her sharply.
Might have raised my voice.
You spoke to Jessie as if you believed that she took the brooch.
Sure.
Okay. Now, Mr. Easterfield, when you were speaking to Jessie, Miss Kelly Emerson, your other housekeeper, she was in the next room cleaning, correct?
I don't know how I would have known that.
She could have been within earshot, perhaps.
She could have been. She's a housekeeper. She's in the house.
You caught Kelly listening in on your conversations before, hadn't you?
In the past.
So it was possible that she was listening again that day.
Sure.
And speaking of Miss Kelly Emerson, Mr. Easterfield, she's the one who found the brooch, correct?
Yes.
That's interesting because it turns out the brooch wasn't stolen after all.
That's not exactly true. It could have been stolen and then placed back in the library.
The brooch wasn't stolen by Jessie, to your knowledge, was it, Mr. Easterfield?
To my knowledge, yes, she did steal it.
The brooch was found in the library. It wasn't found on Jessie, was it, Mr. Easterfield?
No, it was found in the library.
And your wife remembers being in the library the night that the brooch went missing, correct?
I think she said she could have been there.
The news that the brooch had been found in the library didn't really come as a surprise to you at all, did it?
Well, no, not really.
Because you know that your wife often loses her jewelry,
Yeah, she does.
and that she then claims it's stolen.
Sometimes she does.
And then later, it's found.
Not always.
She had lost this very same brooch before, hadn't she, Mr. Easterfield?
She misplaced it before, yes.
And sometimes it was found on the dresser, and sometimes it wasn't.
Yes.
So you weren't sure that it had been stolen before you questioned Jessie.
No.
So unsure that you didn't file a report with the police, did you?
No, we didn't.
Even though your wife demanded that you do so?
No, I didn't file a report.
Because you didn't have enough facts to prove that Jessie actually stole the jewelry, isn't that right?
I was not comfortable with filing a police report.
Because you knew that your wife was careless with her jewelry.
She had been careless in the past, yes.
Because you didn't take her seriously that day, did you?
I had my suspicions.
And you were so unsure that the brooch had been stolen that you actually reported it as lost to the insurance company, not stolen, correct?
Either way, the insurance would pay.
And your insurance company never even received a written claim?
I thought I filed a claim with them.
But they never received a written one, did they?
I guess not.
And your verbal claim, the one that said that the brooch was lost, not stolen, said nothing about Jessie McIntyre, did it?
I didn't have to say anything about her.
And then you withdrew the claim entirely, didn't you, Mr. Easterfield?
me for the missing brooch. I don't recall withdrawing it.
Well, let's move on. Kelly Emerson isn't the only person who found out that you thought Jesse stole the brooch, correct?
I don't know how I would know what other people think.
Okay, let's ask that a different way. ABC Employment Agency, you're familiar with them?
Yes.
This is where Jesse applied for a new job, correct?
Yeah, they called me.
They called you and they asked you why her employment was terminated.
Yes, they did.
And you were of the opinion that Jesse quit,
Yes, she did.
and that you didn't actually fire her.
She quit.
But instead of just telling them that Jesse quit, you volunteered information about the missing brooch, didn't you?
They were calling me for an employment preference, so absolutely.
Even though you had no proof that Jesse stole it.
I didn't need proof. They wanted my opinion.
Even though you knew it could have cost her job there.
Yes.
And then the next day you had lunch with Miss Lee Marlowe, correct?
I don't remember the timing, but I had lunch with her, yes.
And she's the hiring manager of the Nita City Athletic Club,
Yes, she is.
where you were on the board of directors,
Yes, I am.
where you have a lot of influence over what happens at that club.
I don't know if that's a completely fair characterization, but I'm on the board.
And it was mentioned that Jesse had applied for a job there during this lunch,
Yes.
and that job was as a coat room attendant.
Yes.
You told Lee that Jesse used to work for you.
Yes, I did.
She never asked for your opinion, did she?
It was a casual lunch, and we were just talking.
You told her anyway about the brooch, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Even though you had no proof that Jesse stole it. And even though you knew that it could cost her job.
I'm on the board there. I have an obligation.
Mr. Easterfield, you knew that Jesse was an orphan,
Yes, Mr. Reverend Taylor told me that.
and you knew that she had no relatives at all.
I guess not, no.
And you knew as her previous employer that her livelihood depended solely on her getting a job to support herself because she had no one else to do it.
Okay.
And you realized that you were wrong before about her stealing the brooch at that point?
Before when?
You realized at that point that Jesse hadn't stolen the brooch because it had been found in the library, correct?
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. At what point did I realize that? What point are you asking about?
When you talked to the employment agencies, you knew at that point that Jesse hadn't stolen the brooch.
No, I didn't. I spoke to the employment agencies before the brooch was found.
But after that point, when you realized that the brooch hadn't been stolen, when it was found in the library, you didn't call the agency back to tell them, did you?
No.
You knew that the brooch hadn't ever been stolen by Jesse at that point when it was found in the library.
No, I didn't.
And still you never called ABC agency back to clear Jesse's name, did you?
No.
No further questions.